This particular quadrant is a business value quadrant, not a quadrant of how salespeople see themselves, but actually of business value. And if you have a look at this on the left-hand axis, there's the revenue and margin for the seller, and down here on the bottom is the complexity or business value for the customer. And I think we'd all agree that if it's low revenue, low margin, and it's not complex and it's not particularly of high value, then it's definitely a commodity. And one of the biggest mistakes that sales organisations are making today is they're applying, and it's because it happened to them slowly. It's like the frog in the pot on the stove that didn't notice it was getting hot until it was too late. This happens gradually, so I don't want to be too critical of sales organisations, but what's happened is things change. You think of mobile phones and fax machines and radio paging and a myriad of other things. They're stuck with this expensive field sales force increasingly selling down into the commodity end of the market where the margins are being squeezed. And what they need to do is they need to figure out how to use technology, to use CRM systems, to use web, to use social media, to use these things to drive cost out of selling, to use call centers and integrate those things together. Work out how to align to the buyer's journey and transact with people in a way that they'll be satisfied, but drive cost out. A good friend of mine is a very senior sales leader in Australia. He works for a big ERP vendor, and he's running their mid-market team. And these guys are carrying very, very big quotas, and the average transaction size, is $150,000. There are not enough hours in the day for those guys to go and do that number of deals to make their number in the year. That organisation right now is struggling with the fact that market's commoditizing, they've still got their old expensive model they're going to apply with this. And organisations often say, well, we'll solve the problem by adopting a channel strategy. We'll pass that business to channel partners. My view, and I've run channels for Digital Equipment Corporation in the past, I've got a lot of experience with this. My view, it sounds cynical, but channel partners will never build or pioneer a business for you as the vendor. They'll fulfill for you, there'll be a low-cost fulfillment mechanism, but they won't go and pioneer and build a market for you. And the reason is, the reward for most pioneers is an arse full of arrows. It's the settlers that come in later and make the money. So to ask another organisation on skinny margins to go and invest in building a market, what you really need is push-pull models, where you're out there creating demand and yes, working with the channel, but accepting the fact that for the first 2 or 3 years, the margins aren't going to be great, but you need to make the investment in that business model. So, sales executives need to move up in value if they're field people. Certainly, I think most of the selling the people in the room here are involved in that's what we need to be doing. We need to help salespeople to become this trusted advisor kind of person, but let's not use that term because I think it's mythical. What they can become is they can become an engineer of business value and they can become a domain expert. That's what they need to move to. So one of the things that's key to doing this effectively is a geo-vertical segmentation of what you take to market as an organisation. So you need to align around industries rather than around product knowledge. You need to align around industry knowledge in each geography. And the senior people that you've got in these roles need to be part of industry associations. They need to go and hang around with those C-level people inside customer land, and they need to understand those industries incredibly well so they can bring interesting new knowledge to customers when they have a conversation with them. That's certainly what McKinsey does when they go and see a customer, is they talk about, well, what is the benchmark for best practice in your industry? Let's have a conversation about that. Maybe there's some things that we can help you do in re-engineering your business, in using technologies. So those people have to move up in value, and they need to let go of the more transactional business. So let's go back to that salesperson's view of selling. So the bottom left and top right quadrants I think we're all pretty clear about. The top left, this tactical BDM sort of role, or down here, this account manager relationship person. What's the future for them? Because was it Tom or Lou said yesterday that, I think it was Lou, that in 10 years' time there'll be half as many salespeople. And I agree with him 100%. If you don't evolve, if we don't move on, if we don't figure out how to create value for people, we don't have a job. And I think that's a good thing, not a bad thing. And I think selling is becoming more professional and will become a profession. But what about those two roles? The sort of hunter-farmer role. Let me focus on the hunter role first. If you have products that are commoditizing, I think the hunter role is going to become extinct. There is no such thing as a high-margin commodity. When I gave my example before of mobile phones, can you afford to have people driving around the suburbs in company cars selling mobile phones? Well, I guess you kind of can if they do huge numbers, if they have very, very big quotas. But the individual transaction sizes are small, and in that industry there's a strong annuity revenue stream which kind of makes it work. But for many of us in the room, that's certainly not the case. But I think the role of just this hunter is going to diminish. There'll be fewer roles for those people. And if you think about the farmer, I've jokingly said to people that have worked for me in the past, you know, have you got the word professional visitor stamped on your business card? You know, like, you need to sell. The job is not to visit people. Our job is to solve problems, uncover opportunities, unlock value, go and drive revenue, because if a customer is spending money with you, it's usually because the customer is in a very healthy state. If a customer buys something from you and doesn't keep investing in what they bought from you, it'll usually get worse over time. They need to continue to spend money with you. So professional visitors, I think, are going to struggle. Again, people don't want to waste time talking to a salesperson who's just going to give them information that they can find themselves. And again, using technology, using self-service portals for customers, again, a CRM system with an integrated website, allow customers to go and see their own information,